Hey guys, welcome back to Seimojo Homestead. Today we are going to be breaking down one of our chickens that we just got through processing. So on our homestead, we will raise up about 30 chickens at a time and process them all. In the past, we've always done whole birds, but with this round, we want to break them down. And I want to bring you guys along to show you how to break down a bird if you don't already know. Probably why you're watching this video. If you do know and you're watching it to be critical, just stop it right now. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that this is not a masterclass by any means. I know the basics and how to break down a bird for home use. So there may be some little things that aren't technically correct, but it works. Also, the other thing I want to tell you is the order that I do it in works for me. Obviously, you can start on different parts. Find the way that works best for you, but regardless of where you start, the techniques are all going to be the same. The other thing that I want to touch on real quick is knife selection. You'll notice in this video, I'm using a carving knife. It's just because that's kind of my preference. You can use a boning knife, which is very narrow. The benefit of using a boning knife is it's a little bit easier to get in between all the joints and work your way with different angles to get the different cuts separated. But enough about that. Let's get started. All right, guys, so when you have your whole bird right here, this beautiful thing, you want to rest it on its back. Pretty much with birds, you're going to always put it on their back. You want to cook them on their back if you're doing a whole bird. Butchering, it's way easier to lay it on its back because most of your meat is going to be right here. Now, this is going to be mainly just for like home use. So I always like to start with the legs just because they're the thing that's most in the way. Basic knife skills, when you're cutting meat, when you're breaking down any animal, you don't want to saw on it or anything like that. You want to have clean draws across the skin, the meat, whatever it is you're trying to do. Now, if you have cut apart, like carved up a turkey or something like that after it's been cooked, I promise this is way easier when the meat is raw because you can see all of the grains in the meat and the directions it's going and all of that stuff. So I was intimidated for a long time because, you know, it's always stressful when you're the one that has to carve the turkey. But then when I started doing it on raw meat, I was like, oh, this is so much easier. So let's get started. With everything, you're going to be finding the joints. Basically what we're doing is we're just taking apart all the joints. That's where all of your cuts come from, or the individual pieces, and every individual piece is joined to the overall body through joints. So with the legs, you're going to start right here inside the leg and the breast. Before I go further, let me break that down before we cut this apart. So if you don't know, this is the wing section. There's 3 sections. These are the 2 sections that you're going to make your traditional like buffalo wings with. The tips typically get tossed. This is your leg or drumstick. Your thigh is here, and then your tenderloin and breast meat is going to be right here. Starting with the leg, we're going to slice that skin loose. That loosens up the leg on both of these sides. We'll go ahead and do that. So it loosens it up, pulls it away from the body. From there, I am going to cut right here because that's pretty close to the joint. Now, for me, this is the hardest joint to find, is where that leg attaches to the thigh. So in all of these, you're going to see me pop it. You're going to hyperextend those joints. That just exposes the bone, pops those joints because all these joints are going to be ball joints, and that's what you're looking for. So then you can work your knife in between the 2 main bones, and you're looking for just basically cutting away those tendons in there. I'm just going to work my way around that joint until it decides to come free. And there is your drumstick. Go ahead and get this other one done. All right. 2 beautiful drumsticks right there. The next place I like to start or go to is the breast. The breast is going to be the only thing that doesn't really have a joint in it. So I'm going to start just by going right down the middle to slice that skin And then there's a breastbone right here. And I just find whatever side that knife went to on the breastbone, and that's going to be the side that I start. So you're going to start to pull it away. And then as you can see right here, this is your breast meat, traditional breast meat. This is your tenderloin. Tenderloin is what you make like chicken fingers with and stuff like that. So I'm going to gently start to cut that breast meat away from the tenderloin. They are two different muscles, but muscles that are attached. But the grain goes two different ways. So that's what I'm looking for, is trying to get right up against that tenderloin and follow the grain of the breast meat. When you get down to the rib bones, that is when I start to cut it away. A lot of this, guys, you just got to be willing to dive in and go for it. And when I get down here to the neck of it, you want to be careful because that's where the wing connects in. You don't want to start cutting away that wing meat. So stay clear of that meat. Again, you're just looking for where it changes direction and grain. And there you have a nice breast. So we are leaving the skin on all this. You can be pulling the skin off as you do this if you like. But since we raise our own birds, we get really good skin that can crisp up and add a lot of flavor. Next, I'm just going to follow that breastbone straight down, cut that tenderloin loose from that. Again, going all the way down to where I feel the ribs, and then watching your fingers, you're going to cut it as close to the ribs as you can. And there is a nice tenderloin for those fried chicken fingers. Next, we're going to just go and do the same thing on the other side. I will say, like, you may lose a little bit of meat, depending on how precise you're being, to like right up against the ribs and stuff. I'm not too worried about that. I don't stress about it because we are going to be saving this carcass to cook it for broth. And so any of that little extra meat that's left on there is just going to add a little bit of flavor to that broth. I prefer to go to the wings next just because I was already in that part of the bird working. So again, going to kind of cut that loose wherever you see that joint. Pop it. This one to me is the easiest joint to find and kind of get through. So we're going to slice the skin that kind of connects those two pieces. Again, pop the joint. Find that intersecting point. And there's the drumstick part of your wing. Pop the joint. So this one is the smallest joint, so this is another one that tends to be a little bit tough to kind of find your way through. But just kind of keep angling your knife until you find it. So the tips, I always just throw it in with the broth. So for storage sake, I put it inside the cavity and store it that way. If you're not going to be throwing this into a boiling pot right away, you're going to store the carcass for later, then that is a great way to do that. The grain of the breast meat. When you get down to that wing connects in, you don't want to start cutting away that wing meat or where it changes direction and grain. And there you have. All right, next and last are the thighs. So for the thighs, you're going to follow right along the edge, cut in there just to cut it loose. And then these usually pop pretty easy. So the bone right there exposes it. You can get through it, through that joint, not the bone. Never want to cut through a bone. It will dull your knife, not in this. And then you're going to continue to follow that right along the side of the carcass as close as you can get it. And you've got your bone in thigh. Same thing on this side. Keeping it really close. Oh, got a few feathers left on there. Get it loose just enough so we can pop it. Get in between. And then right down the backside of the carcass. All right. If you got the neck on there, storage sake, I like to get that neck off of there and put it inside the cavity too, just kind of a space saver. Usually, yep, you can do that with your hands. Tuck that wingtip in there. And there you have it. 2 thighs, 2 legs, 2 breasts, 2 tenderloins, and 4 sections of wings. Voila. So I hope that you found that helpful and gives you enough confidence to go try it yourself. One thing, even if you're not raising birds, it is always cheaper to buy a whole bird from the store than to buy the pieces because there's less labor going into it. And so this is a great way to save money on your grocery bill by going to the store, buying a whole bird, and then breaking it down however you want to do it. Knowing how to do this is empowering. So go try it. Don't be afraid. Hope you guys have a great week and be blessed.